Hey, what's going on YouTube? Or Storm here with another video today, profiling my heroes for the new July 2015 ban list. Obviously, we didn't see a ton of changes. I mean, outside of the Lava Chain getting banned, and I didn't run Chain. I wouldn't have ran Chain in this deck anyways. Really, this deck wasn't touched. Rhoda's still at 3, although this deck wouldn't have been affected too much if Rhoda gotten hit. But anyway, this is kind of my new take on the deck. So anyway, guys, let's go and get to it. 3 copies of Elemental Hero Shadow Mist. You know, this is kind of like Shadow's girlfriend. It's basically like it's self-explanatory, sort of like you run 3 because it's a strat whenever. And to be honest, like now that we have this card, I feel like Stratos isn't totally necessary. Would I complain if he came back? No, but I just don't think Stratos is necessary anymore in my personal opinion with Shadow Mist. 2 copies of Elemental Hero Bubbleman. The reason I run Bubbleman at 2 is because this isn't really a traditional bubble beat deck like Team of Innovations list is. He relies a lot more on making Ptolemos and the whole Ptolemos to Durandal combo. Me personally, I like to kind of use, my build runs Form Change, and I like to you know, switch tag in and out with my masked heroes. And Bubbleman is still a necessity at 2 for getting to the XYZs I do run. And it's also good because it sets up Acid, which is one of the best masked heroes, and Ab-Zero, which I also play. And then 1 copy of Neo Alias. You don't need more than 1. In other builds, my first take on the deck, I was running 3, and I tested and was like, God, this card is not as good as it was. It's basically here for a big beater, and it's a Miracle Fusion target for Shiny. And then for the last 2 Hero Monsters, 2 copies of Elemental Hero Voltic. If you don't know what this card does, it's whenever it inflicts battle damage, you can target one of your banished Elemental Hero Monsters and special summon them. I'm running a more, because I don't currently own Blazeman's, I'm kind of running a more Miracle Fusion based build. So Voltic kind of just, well, no, made sense. And now for some of the other non-hero support cards, 2 copies of Summoner Monk. Summoner Monk is a pretty important card in this deck. It's a +1, and I actually like. Summoner Monk is a card I'm kind of picky about using because I don't like it unless I'm pitching a spell card that I can either recycle or like I can in this deck because I run Mash Charge, or something like Harpies where I get to go +3 when I pitch the sign. So in this deck, Summoner Monk makes perfect sense, so it's in here. And then of course 2 copies of Goblinberg. I like this card because it gets our Dark Laws online as early as possible. The main point of this card is to get Dark Law online. I do not run a Hero Lives, so you need cards like this to get Dark Law out. And then now for some of the kind of more anti-meta-y cards. 2 copies of Traptrix from Yugioh. The reason I've always, as if you followed me before, you know I've always liked Traptrix. I've always liked the cards. And I really think in this deck, since I'm running Call of the Haunted already, I feel like this card just gets better. And Traptrix, Tropical Nightmare, and Bottomless being searchable is pretty nice. And the fact she's an MST means I don't have to main board triple space. So that's really nice. And then lastly, 1 copy of Thunder King Raiho. Everyone knows it's currently still at 1 in the TCG. Everyone knows I love this card. It's probably my favorite anti-meta card. It's won games on its own. And everyone, if you follow me for a while, you know I wish this card was at multiples, but it's at 1. So that's all the monster lineup for the spells. Like I said, 2 copies of MST. Because I'm running Yugioh, I really don't feel like I need 3 of these. 2 is kind of ideal. If you're, and to be honest, like I don't really feel like with Dark Law, you don't really lose to Floodgates as often as other decks do. But I feel like I'd always play 2 space no matter what. 3 copies of Reinforcement Army. It's still at 3 in the TCG, so pretty much you're running the normal, like opposite of what the OCG runs, 3 Rhoda and 1 E-Call. If you feel like you need that 1 more E-Call, because I do run more heroes than the traditional, hero decks, you can feel free to run the extra copy, but I feel like 3 and 1 is kind of ideal, especially with my ratios. And of course 3 copies of Mash Change. Mash Change is it's obviously with Shadow Mist, you gotta run this card at 3. Also, I run 2 copies of Form Change. The reason I'm running Form Change is that now that we have Anki, I feel like this card is much more live. If you guys know, if you've seen Anki, you know what it does. Basically, every time Anki destroys a monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, it searches a Mash Change spell, so you can search this and Form Change and trade it in and out and push OTK damage. So it's really nice. And 2 is a good ratio because you don't always want to have it in your hand. You don't want to see it all the time. 1, you will never see it. 3 is way too many, and 2 is kind of like, just right. Like Goldilocks and the 3 Bears. And then next for the next two spell cards, 2 copy of Mash Charge. I absolutely love this card because it's like an instant +1. You get to add a hero monster and a Mass Change spell, and this is one of the reasons why I love Summoner Monk is this card as well. So, and as I mentioned previously, 2 copies of Miracle Fusion. I only run 3 targets for it, so I feel like 2 is kind of the ideal ratios. You don't want to run 2. You don't want to run 3 for 3. You know how. If you know my thoughts on ratios, you know that I hate running 3 cards for 3 targets. So that's why it's in here at 2. And the last 2 spell cards, 2 copies of Forbidden Lance. This card is it's crucial because you want to make sure your stuff goes through. It's good at keeping your Dark Law safe. The main thing is this card is great in the mirror match because if they try to mass change their one of the cool things is with Lance and mass change, if they try to mass change their Shadow Mist, you can chain Lance, and because mass charge change is not a cost that's in the monster, Lance will force mass change to not finish fizzle out and not resolve. So your opponent, if they try to mass change and you chain Lance, not only is that mass change dead, they can't mass change it again because it's unaffected by spell cards. And they'll be sitting on a 200 Shadow Mist and they will be sad. So that's all for this spell in it. 3 copies of Call of the Haunted. I will say, and I like this card in the deck for obvious reasons, but I'm tempted to switch over to Powerful Reverse, the trap card from Cross Souls. It's sort of like Call of the Haunted, except if you get space, the monster won't die. So because most of the stuff you're going to be Call the Haunting back is level 4 and lower anyways, I will say you can I do like Call the Haunted. I think it's a 3 of in my particular build, but if you have Powerful Reverse, you can run it over these. And of course, 2 copies of Fiendish Chain. I really like Fiendish Chain. Obviously, like my Battling Boxers have my other 2 copies, so if I ever took this to an event, this card would be at 3. But because I like having cards, and I don't like splitting my cards between my decks, so that's why it's 2. And now we're getting to the Traptrix targets. 2 copies of Traptrix Trap Hole Nightmare and 1 copy of Bottomless Trap Hole. As I've said about running thoughts on ratios, I run 2 Remilios, so 3 targets is perfectly fine. If I was running if I took this other cards, I might run Time Space Trap Hole maybe as a side deck option or Deep Dark Trap Hole, but that's what these are. And Traptrix Trap Hole Nightmare is actually not a bad card, especially against Necros, because I always liked it against cards that trigger on the summon. Like I love being able to stop Trevor, stop board wiping like Black Rose, just go no and just get them off the board. Pretty dang nice. That's all of the main deck. Now we're getting to the extra deck. So, got 2 copies of Dark Law. The reason I only run 2 is because I feel like I don't need the 3rd one, and I obviously, as you see from the main deck, I do not run a Hero Lives, so because I kind of want to run a balance between I don't like the Hero Lives because it's a bit too whatever word YOLO, whatever word you want to use for it. I like Dark Law. It's important to get him online because the card's just too good not to play. But you shouldn't completely rely on it. And that's one of the thought processes with running 2. Sorry about that, guys. I had a bit of a camera malfunction, so we'll get back to the list. 1 copy of Master Hero Anki. What I love about this card is what's great about this card is that it's like I said, it makes form changes more alive, and that's one of the reasons why what I love about form changes, you can make this swing, form change in and out, and it adds a lot of, what I love about form change is kind of the tag in and out aspect and dodging back rows. So that's one of the reasons why, Anki's in here. Then 1 copy of Kogo. You shouldn't ever really need more than 1 card. What I really like about this card is both of its effects are damage modifying. The first one is it gains 500 attack for every monster your opponent controls, so they cannot spam the board and expect to smash over this, because it's just going to get bigger. And the other effect is you can banish a hero monster from your graveyard to target a monster on the field, and it loses attack and defense equal to that. So what this means is that effect can actually be triggered during the damage step, since it modifies attack and defense. So you can wait, and obviously with timing you want to wait until the damage step to activate the effect, because if you've played Yu-Gi-Oh you understand there's a lot of cards that can't be activated during the damage step. And then 1 copy of Acid. I really love this card. I feel like I would honestly, if I had the second one, I might run 2. But what this card, if you don't know what this card does, it's basically when it's summoned, it is a Harpy's Feather Duster. It wipes out your opponent's back row. And obviously this combo is great with Acid because it can wipe your opponent, or Ab-Zero, because form changing an Ab-Zero into an acid will basically mean a wipe for your opponent's complete board. So, and what's great about this is that one of the few ways to stop Absolute Zero is 101. So if you have a mass change set and you're sitting on their Ab-Zero and they try to arc your, they try to 101 your Ab-Zero, you can form change or mass change it away and then bring this out, and not only does their 101 fizzle out because it lost the target, their board is going to go. So it's card is absolutely bonkers. And then one copy of Master Hero Divine Wind. Obviously this card is, with form change, the reason I'm running this is because form change makes this card easier to get out. Obviously we can't get it out easily because Stratos is banned. But if you don't know what this card does, first off, it can't be destroyed by battle. The second effect is your opponent can only attack with one monster per turn. So it's kind of like a window-like effect where it slows your opponent down. It doesn't fully stop them from making plays, but it does slow them down. And every time this card runs over a monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, it lets you draw a card. So it's actually not a bad card, but, you know, Stratos is banned, so it's not the easiest thing to summon, unless you think running Avion is a good idea. Next, one copy of Master Hero Dion. This is another one of the tin ones. So if you don't know what this one does, every time it destroys an opponent's monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, you get to special summon one level 4 or lower hero monster from your deck. Obviously, you want to run over this, summon Shadow Mist, attack with Shadow Mist, you get the idea. It's a pretty nice little card. Now we're getting to the 3 Miracle Fusion targets. I only run 3, like I said, that's why I only run 2 Miracle Fusions. One copy of Absolute Zero. As I said, this card is just, it's kind of one of those cards I feel like in Yu-Gi-Oh! Similar to some others, that it's always going to be good. Like, lead the field effects are incredibly difficult to stop, and people also forget it makes every other water monster, then it gains 500 attack for each face-up water monster except itself. So if you're playing something like Necros, you drop this, they can make all the, barring Unicorn, this thing is going to get bigger and bigger depending on how much they spam the board. So they have a lot of water-related decks have trouble dealing with this card. So, and I mentioned previously, the whole using mass change to dodge, removal type effects is pretty nice. And one copy of Shining. Since we're playing the Miracle Fusion build, this card obviously just makes sense. It's whenever it gains 300 attack for every, most of you probably know what Shining does, but in case you don't, it gains 300 attack for every banished hero monster, and when it goes to the graveyard, it will recycle 2 of your banished targets. So pretty nice. And lastly, one copy of Contrast Hero Chaos. And I know a lot of hero players do not run this card, and I feel like my thoughts on running it were that I wanted a 3rd Miracle Fusion target because I didn't run, as I said, I wanted to run 2 Miracle Fusions and run a 3rd target. So this card, it requires fusion materials is 2 Master Hero monsters. So it will probably be more live late game. That's what's great about this card is if you don't know what it does, during either player's turn, you can target one face-up card in the field to negate that target's effect until the end of the turn. So basically, think of it like a zombie sign, except it's any card on the field, you can just negate it. So when you think about that concept, in fact, you can chain this card's effect to something like Dark Hole or something and just negate it, and it's pretty bonkers if you combine it with the right type of monsters. So, shush, cat, I'm trying to record a video. She interrupts every video. So now we're getting to the XYZs. One copy of number 80, Rhapsody and Berserk. I love this card because the more I'm testing it, the more I'm really liking it because it's a DD Crow in the extra deck. Basically, like banishing off those Necros mirrors, against Infernoids, slowing. You'd be surprised how much this card can slow down an Infernoid or Light Sworn player because they need those numbers in the graveyard. And if they don't get off an amazing mill right away, banishing off, especially with this card, you can also banish off their, with Infernoids, you want to banish off their big monsters like their Onunks, their Devies, and stuff. That's why this card just gets better. And the other effect people tend to forget about is when it's done doing its banishing job, you can actually equip it to an XYZ, and it will give it 1200 attack. So that's actually pretty, can be relevant in certain situations. And as we just showed this guy, speaking of this guy, I want a copy of Abyss Dweller. This card is probably a mandatory, in my opinion, card is kind of mandatory in Heroes because you're playing Bubble Man. While Bubble Man's on this card as Exceed material, it'll gain, all your water monsters will gain 500 attack, so that makes your Ab-Zeros bigger, your Acids bigger, but it also can be chained to stop graveyard effects. You just have to chain. The way you have to use this card is you have to chain it before they go into their graveyard. So basically, like if you're playing Burning Abyss, you chain this during their standby phase because they have priority on their main phase. So they'll still get all their graveyard shenanigans. So chain it on their standby phase. One copy of Excalibur. Towers out. It's pretty pushes OTKs. Pretty self-explanatory. You know, I prefer this card over Blade Armor Ninja because it gets over a big eye. It's an irrational bias, but nevertheless, that's why I play it. One copy of Black Ship of Corn. Mostly this is kind of to fill out the extra deck. I mean, if I took this to an event, it probably would be a Castel. But I love the fact that it gets over a lot of monsters that can't be destroyed. Plus, you know, I also run number 80, so one of the cool combos you can do is, like, say you have a Black Ship on the board. You can make a number 80, use its effect twice, then piggyback it on Corn, and Corn can't destroy monsters that have lower attack than it. Have an attack that's higher than it, correct? So what you can do is you can actually piggyback this on Black Ship of Corn, and now, because it's 1200 bigger, it can get over bigger threats such as Weasel, you know, those higher attack monsters that can't be destroyed by card effects. You know, you probably know which ones I'm talking about. And lastly, one copy of Karen Gorgon. I love this card in combination with Dark Claw because it keeps those breakthrough skills, all those annoying like targeting effects that they might use to get over your Dark Claw. Shush, cut. But she's like, no. And Karen Gorgon is a really good card for keeping your Dark Claw protected, and main reason, and it also can keep your back row safe from MSTs. Like, it's a pretty mandatory card in most Rank 4 decks, in my opinion. So with that out of the way, guys, I hope you enjoyed the deck profile today. Always really appreciate it when people watch my videos. If you've got any suggestions or comments, please leave a comment section in the comment section down below. And if you like what you saw from this video, please subscribe. This is Storm signing out.